Hi, this is Jonathan from the team at CompareYourFootprint, and I'll be guiding you today in setting up your Xero connection. So the first thing we're going to do is start off with the basics and information around Xero, why you should use it and why you shouldn't when you're trying to track your carbon footprint or your carbon consumption. So our agenda for this very short introduction to the Xero connection is as follows. We're going to first say and discuss how this works and what does the integration do. And we're going to mention when this connection maybe is not the right fit for your organization. Then we're going to show you how you can connect it with your Xero account. And after that, I'm going to describe the two options that we have with using account codes or tracking categories. If you're not familiar with these terms, don't worry, we'll be explaining them in as much detail as relevant for this purpose. Finally, I'm going to show you how you can update your Compare Footprint data based on what you have in your Xero account. So let's get started. So why would you use the Xero connection with Compare Footprint in the first place? So you as a business owner or someone in the business are very keen to start reporting and understanding your organization's carbon emissions, but don't necessarily know all the ins and outs of what is required. So this is a very good way to get you started with understanding your company's carbon emissions. Your accounting and bookkeeping teams, or yourself if it's a micro business, are already keeping track of your numerous business expenses, which relate directly or indirectly to carbon, which is being consumed along the way. So, for example, if you're purchasing paper, that paper has a carbon footprint which is leaving behind. So you are already collecting some of the data, if not all, what that is required to report on your carbon consumption. If these expenses are correctly categorized, then we are able to calculate carbon emissions based on that. So I've brought the example of paper, but I'll also give a couple of other examples. So when running your business, you obviously incur utilities like water, electricity, and maybe gas. And these all directly impact on the carbon emission of your business. So if you're using electricity, that is obviously being powered by something on the back end, whether it's nuclear, whether it's gas, whether it's biofuels, something is generated that electricity, and we'll want to catch that and use that in our reporting. So if we are able to identify something as electricity, electricity has its equivalent factor, and with that we are able to then convert into carbon. Obviously, when we're using this method, we are using high-level industry averages, which are not specific to your business or, in this case, your electricity provider. However, it's a very good way to get started. Another reason why you would use this is if you don't have the resources to go back and analyze all those bills, such as the electricity bills, to identify the raw units that you've used. So in the example of electricity, we would require to know the kilowatt hours or the kilowatts rather, that you've consumed in a specific period. And if you want to be even more accurate, we'd also need to know the grid mix that you are using. However, at this high level, we do not require that, but we are able to convert your spend, be it in pounds, dollars, or euros, into carbon emissions. So it's a very quick way to get started without going into the nitty-gritty and digging up a lot of information. When is the Xero information not good for organization? So obviously, if we are doing this at a very high level, if you are looking for granular data and very accurate carbon emissions, this integration will not provide that. However, in some cases, it can be used to fill gaps of information. So if you are able to get your electricity reading in a very good manner, we can disconnect that component from Xero, use Xero for other spend information, and input direct raw data for your electricity usage. In the case that you want to measure the impact of changes on suppliers, then obviously the integration is not going to be good enough, because most likely when you change providers for something more eco-friendly, you'll probably be paying a premium price, unfortunately, and that will obviously increase your spend or potentially increase your spend, and your carbon emissions with this method will not reduce, as we are still taking industry averages. So in that instance, you will want to use direct raw data to calculate your emissions. If, as well, you require this report for an official document where spend data is prohibited, unfortunately, you can't use this integration. However, for most businesses, these three shouldn't be a barrier, at least to get started with measuring your high-level emissions, and then eventually upping your game and reducing your emissions as we go along. So before I go into the details of tracking categories, I want to explain how you connect your account to Xero. So I am here in my Compare Your Footprint account, and I have gone onto my organization. So if I go over there again, I can basically click on my list of organizations. At the moment, you should have only one. If you're a single business, you might have more than one if you're operating in a group or consulting for a number of businesses. I will go on my Xero test organization, which will load there. Once you see Connect to Xero, you can click that. In my case, I have already connected, so I will not see that screen. I have selected an organization in the case that I have multiple Xero organizations connected with Compare Your Footprint. So in this scenario, I've selected Demo Company. And then the system will ask me which method I would like to use. And I have account codes and tracking categories. For the sake of the example, I'm going to proceed with account codes, and then I'll go into and explain the difference between the two, and I will show you how you find them and set them up within Xero. So if I go into account codes, as you'll see, there is a list titled on the left, which is made up of tracking items that we require in Compare Your Footprint. So in Compare Your Footprint, we have a list of things we are able to convert from the spend amount into carbon or carbon emissions. This list is obviously finite, so there may be a scenario where we might not cover all the use cases. If you have something which is not covered, please reach out to us so we can help set that up and make it available for you to use. From this list, not every item you will need to use for your business. So if you never travel for business purposes, hotel stay will obviously not be required or used by your business. So you will only need a subset of this whole list. However, what happens over here is that you are supposed to map your our Compare Your Footprint item, for example, gas, into your nominal or accounting code, which is available in Xero. What you might realize, however, is that your default or general accounting categories in Xero do not map one-to-one to what is required from Compare Your Footprint. So in this very case, if I have gas, I will obviously do not have a gas item. I might have a utilities item, which is more generic. Or in the case of travel, I will not have a specific travel item, but I will have travel national and international. Unfortunately, at this level, if I choose travel international, I am not able to distinguish between sea and air travel, which have different impacts. So from a Compare Your Footprint perspective, we would need these to be split out accordingly. If you never obviously travel by sea and you have only one travel item and all that travel item relates to air travel, when I'm saying air travel doesn't include accommodation and stays, which fall under a different category and compare your footprint, then you can use that high level item. If you do not have that high level item, you can obviously create that high level item. In fact, the plus icon over here would allow you to add this, given that you have permissions within your Xero organization to add that. However, in most cases, you'll want to talk to your accountant before making these changes without them being aware of these changes. So before going deeper into this, I want to discuss the two options of account codes and tracking categories so you understand which one might be a best fit for your organization. In terms of end result with Compare Your Footprint, both will generate the same result. So deciding which way to go forward is something you may decide with your accountant and will be based on your and their preferences and your specific business needs. So account codes are set up from the chart of accounts. We'll show you this in a minute. And they are usually managed by your accountant. They are primarily used to categorize your accounts for official reporting. Sometimes you'll have specific charts of accounts for your type of business and internal reporting needs as well. Depending on how your Xero account is set up, your accountant may be managing these for you. And as such, you might not have permissions to update the chart of accounts yourself. And keep in mind that your accountant may be using a standard across all their client base. So if they have specific templates which they use for reporting, changing your standard account codes might impact the reporting templates, which will also need to be updated. So that's why it's always good to talk to your accountant before you change anything over there. And you might unfortunately not always convince them to update your account codes. However, it's obviously a very good conversation to have and make sure that they understand why you would like to understand your why you want to change them and the importance of carbon reporting for your business. Tracking categories are a different type or a different method of splitting and identifying your data. Xero allows you two tracking categories. So unfortunately, the list is also very finite. Each category can have multiple options. The general guidance is use up to around 100, but we've known businesses which have used much more. The common use cases for tracking categories include departments, customer representative, salesperson, outlets, basically anything which will allow you to also monitor the expenditure or sales by different categories or areas of business. So this is a way of reporting that wouldn't modify your chart of accounts. However, as there are only two, it could be that your business is already using some of these or would like to use some of these for business purposes, which would then not make them available for use by Compare Your Footprint. However, if you can't change your chart of account, this is a good way of going around it if you have a tracking category available to use for carbon reporting purposes. So now I'll go and explain where these are found within Xero and how you set them up if you need to. So I am here in my demo organization Xero account. I am going to click on my accounting, and if I do have access, you should have a chart of accounts available here. If it's not in your shortcuts, I am going to click on advanced and you will see chart of accounts. If this is not starred, you will not obviously see it in your main list. So once I click chart of accounts, I will see a list of all my chart of account items. If I want to add a new account, I can choose an account type, which will usually be either an expense or a liability in case of items which are relevant to compare your footprint, because sales and revenue at this moment is not being tracked for carbon consumption because that doesn't directly relate. So let's say that we choose an expense. Obviously, a direct cost and anything in this area could be relevant for that. You might have a unique account code and the name. For Compare Your Footprint, we are not automatically setting any codes, but we are just putting an automated name if you decide to click within one of these options. So I will just click there, so then I can show you how one of those appears. So let's say that we create an expense code and we were on business travel. So we'll do air travel, and I'll just put a code of air travel. This is usually a number. I'm just doing it this way so you understand what I'm doing. And I will save this code. I'm going to refresh my Compare Footprint account. So I'll choose, go down to my air travel. So now I see a new item which appears with the name air travel. So that has been added from the account codes. As I said, if you're modifying here, please check with your accountant. The other option that we have is also found within the advanced section, and that is tracking categories. This is where we are a bit more open with editing data from a Compare Your Footprint perspective. So if you, in this case, I have one category which is called region, so I can add another one, and I'll add another one which is called carbon category, just to keep the name short. I'm not going to add any options for the time being, so I just save that. I'm going to refresh once again on my Compare Footprint account to get the latest data. I'm going to select tracking categories. Right there, be too fast. Just bear with me. And now I have two options. So I have region and carbon category. I'm going to select carbon category, and here it was showing some of my previous options because I did not save. So I'll just clear all of these. So I basically cleared out my previous options, so you can see a blank slate. And let's say that we are interested only in the sea and air travel component. So I will just click on the plus there, and as you see, these will fill up automatically. I will save my Xero settings. Meanwhile, if I go back on my Xero account and refresh my tracking category section, going on carbon category, I will notice I have a business travel air and a business travel sea. So now I have those set up. It's time that I start updating my bills accordingly to have this information. Now keep in mind, if your accountant has locking enabled on your Xero account, you might not be in a position to update historic data. If you really want to have your historic data updated as well, reach out to your accountant and discuss this so they can unlock the periods, and it would allow you to update your invoice and bills with relevant tracking categories. Pay attention when you do that. Do not change anything else unless otherwise instructed by your accountant, so you don't modify your historic accounts. However, you want to do this going forward, it's exactly what we'll cover now. So I'm going to go into my bills section within Xero. I'm going to find some of my previous items in this case. I'm going to edit a previous bill. And if you'll notice, you have your normal nominal account, which is appearing over here. So if you decide to use the normal air travel nominal account, you can do that from there. If you, on the other hand, opted for the carbon category, that should be added to your list, and you should also find that over there. Once you do this, obviously you can update and save your changes within Xero. And the final step that we'll need to do from a Compare Your Footprint perspective, if we want to import historic data to generate annual reports, we'll proceed to this block at the bottom, which will say select year to import. You can choose your financial year that you want to import, and then click on Import Spend Data from Xero. Keep in mind that in order to do this, you obviously need to have updated your Xero categories to map what we configure up here. As I mentioned, go over all of these and update the relevant ones. And based on that, then you'll be able to have updated reports within Compare Footprint. In terms of using Compare Footprint, we'll have other guides available for you. So if you have any other questions in using Compare Footprint, please reach out or let us know if we can help you in any other way. Thank you for bearing with me for the duration of this introduction to connecting with Xero for Compare Your Footprint, and I hope to see you or talk to you next time. Thank you.